Hey there, beautiful souls. Have you ever had that moment when your entire world shifts beneath your feet? When everything you thought was real suddenly feels like a carefully crafted illusion? That happened to me during what was supposed to be the beginning of our golden years together. What I discovered about my husband of 28 years would shatter the foundation of everything I believed about our marriage. If you've ever felt that gut-wrenching sensation that something isn't right, stay with me. This is my story. It was a crisp autumn morning when Jack and I arrived at Lakeview Resort for our retirement planning seminar. Sunlight danced across the lake, casting golden reflections that matched my mood. After decades of working, saving, and building our life together, we were finally planning our forever after, or so I thought. I adjusted my cardigan as we entered the seminar hall, smiling at the other couples who, like us, were planning their future together. Jack squeezed my hand, his silver-framed glasses catching the light as he leaned close to check the schedule. "What's next?" he asked, his voice as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. "Session on financial pitfalls in retirement," I replied, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I loved that we did these things together. Planned, prepared, looked out for each other. Jack had always been my steady rock, reliable and charming. But today, something felt different. During the seminar, I scribbled notes diligently, while Jack seemed distracted, his focus pulled elsewhere. At one point, his phone buzzed softly. He tilted the screen away from me, typing quickly before slipping it back into his pocket. A small gesture, but it planted a seed of unease that I couldn't shake. Later that afternoon, I noticed a woman waving to Jack across the room. Her dark hair framed her face elegantly, and her tailored suit exuded confidence. Jack stood abruptly. "Be right back," he muttered, giving my shoulder a brief pat. I watched as they stepped aside, speaking in hushed tones. The woman handed him an envelope, thin and white, like something from a bank or legal office. Jack folded it neatly into his jacket pocket before returning to me. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual while my heart fluttered with curiosity. "Yeah, fine. Just someone I used to work with," he replied easily, slipping back into his seat as though nothing had happened. But I caught the slight pause in his response, the way he avoided meeting my eyes. After 28 years of marriage, I knew his tells. That evening, while Jack showered, I unpacked our bags. When I picked up his jacket to hang it, my hand brushed against something firm in the pocket, the envelope. I hesitated, my pulse quickening. My first instinct was to leave it alone. Jack would tell me if it was important, wouldn't he? But curiosity burned in my chest like a flame that wouldn't die. Slowly, I unfolded the flap and slid out its contents. Inside was a single piece of paper with a string of numbers. A combination, perhaps, written in precise, slanted handwriting. Beneath the numbers was a name I didn't recognize. Amanda Rivers. My breath caught. Who was Amanda? And why would Jack be carrying this? I slipped the paper back just as I heard the water shut off. When Jack emerged, I smiled as if nothing had happened, but my mind raced with questions. That night, as Jack drifted off to sleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The envelope, the woman, the scribbled note, none of it felt right. For the first time in our marriage, I felt a tiny crack form in the foundation of trust we had built. It was a small thing, I told myself. Maybe nothing, but deep down I knew this feeling wouldn't be so easily shaken. The morning air was sharp and fresh as I stepped out onto our balcony, coffee in hand. Jack was still inside, and I could hear his laughter through the open door. A short, low chuckle, followed by murmured words. He was on the phone, speaking in a tone I hadn't heard before. Soft, intimate, secretive. A knot tightened in my chest. Jack had never given me reason to doubt him, but now my mind raced with possibilities I didn't want to face. When he finally joined me, I decided to test the waters. "Who were you talking to just now?" I asked lightly. Jack's response was quick. Too quick. "Oh, just an old colleague. He wanted some advice about a consulting project." He turned back toward the door before I could press further. "We'd better head down before the breakfast line gets too long." If you're feeling that same twist in your stomach that I felt that morning, that instinct that something isn't right, drop a heart in the comments. Sometimes our intuition speaks louder than words ever could. At breakfast, Jack's charm was effortless. his laughter contagious. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that I was overthinking everything. But that fragile reassurance crumbled when his phone buzzed again, and he silenced it without even checking who it was. During that day's session on managing retirement finances, I found myself enthralled by the speaker, a former forensic accountant who shared cautionary tales about hidden debts and fraudulent schemes. Jack, however, seemed distracted, repeatedly checking his phone. When the session ended, Jack excused himself abruptly. "Need to take a call," he said, disappearing into the corridor. I watched him go, something deep inside me shifting. The quiet voice telling me to ignore my doubts was losing its strength. On impulse, I wandered to the resort's library and spotted a woman I'd noticed earlier, a lively attendee who had spoken with sharp wit during one of the discussions. "Hi," I began tentatively. "I'm Sarah. I think we sat near each other yesterday?" The woman's face lit up with a friendly smile. "Oh yes, I'm Maggie. Nice to meet you." We chatted easily, and as our conversation deepened, Maggie shared something that hit me like a physical blow. "It's shocking how little you can truly know about someone, even after years together," she said, her voice tinged with pain. "My late husband gambled away our savings in secret. I had no idea until it was too late." I tried to respond casually, but her words unraveled something in my mind. Was it possible I didn't know Jack as well as I thought? I glanced at my watch and realized Jack had been gone far longer than a simple phone call should have taken. That evening, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, I decided to probe a little deeper. "Do you ever think about your old firm?" I asked casually. Jack glanced at me, surprised by the question. "Not really. Why?" "Oh, I don't know," I said, keeping my gaze on the horizon. "I read something about Amanda Rivers today. It's awful what happened to her." Jack's reaction was subtle but telling. His shoulders stiffened, and he took a long sip of wine before answering. "Yeah, terrible. I don't know much about it, though. I wasn't involved in any of that." The lie hung in the air between us, palpable and heavy. I didn't push further, but in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that Jack was hiding something significant. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept returning to Maggie's words about her husband's gambling. What secrets was Jack keeping from me? And how deep did they go? The next morning, I decided to take a risk. While Jack attended an early session, I slipped away to the resort's business center and searched for information about Amanda Rivers. What I found made my blood run cold. "Accountant linked to fraud scandal goes missing," the headline read. Amanda Rivers wasn't just some random woman. She was Jack's former business partner. She had vanished amid allegations of embezzling millions from clients, with authorities suspecting she had fled the country. My hands trembled as I read the article. Jack had never mentioned Amanda's disappearance. He'd barely talked about his time at the firm, brushing off questions about his retirement as boring accounting stuff. Have you ever had that moment when pieces of a puzzle suddenly snap together, revealing a picture you never wanted to see? Share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our stories helps us feel less alone in our darkest moments. I couldn't wait any longer. While Jack was at another session, I searched our room, looking for something, anything, that might give me answers. Hidden inside his suitcase, I found a small notebook filled with scribbled notes, numbers, and names. My heart nearly stopped when I saw it. Amanda Rivers' name, followed by an address and dates. And there, on another page, was my own name listed next to a number I didn't recognize. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold the notebook. What was Jack doing? And why was my name in there? I confided in Maggie that afternoon, showing her photos I'd taken of the notebook pages. "Sarah," she said, her face grave, "this isn't just shady bookkeeping. This looks like evidence of something much bigger. These could be offshore accounts or worse." "What should I do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "First, you need to protect yourself," Maggie replied firmly. "If your name is connected to any of this, you could be implicated, even if you had no idea. Second, you need outside help. This is too big to handle alone." Through Maggie, I met Paul, a retired financial investigator. When I showed him the photos of Jack's notebook, his expression darkened. "This isn't amateur work," he said, examining the images. These are offshore accounts aligned with typical money laundering operations. And the name Amanda Rivers. She wasn't just a missing accountant. She was the linchpin in a major fraud operation. If your husband was connected to her disappearance, he might be involved in much more than financial crimes. The words hit me like a physical blow. I had prepared myself for lies, for betrayal. But this? It was a nightmare I hadn't seen coming. What should I do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You need to confront him, Paul replied, but not before we gather more evidence. If he senses you're on to him, there's no telling what he might do. That evening, I could barely look at Jack without seeing the shadow of the man Paul had described. As we sat down for dinner, Jack poured me a glass of wine, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. You seem quiet, he said casually. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Just tired. The sessions have been a lot to process. Jack nodded, swirling his wine. Yeah, they really throw a lot at you. But it's good to be prepared. The irony of his words was almost too much to bear. The next morning, I woke with a heavy heart but a clear purpose. Today I would confront Jack, but not without a plan. After lunch, I spotted him sitting alone on the resort's terrace, phone in hand. He seemed relaxed, his guard down. It was the perfect moment. Jack, I began as I approached, my tone even and steady. I sat across from him, placing my hands on the table. We need to talk. Jack looked up, startled by my serious tone. Sure. What's on your mind? I took a deep breath. I've been noticing things, strange things, the phone calls, the envelopes, the lies. I leaned forward, my eyes locking onto his. And then there's this. I showed him the photos of his notebook. Jack's expression shifted. Panic flashed across his face before he masked it with calm. Where did you get that? He asked, his voice measured. That's not the question you should be asking, I shot back. What I want to know is why my name is in here, why Amanda Rivers is in here. What have you been hiding from me, Jack? For a moment he said nothing. Then he leaned back, making sure no one was within earshot. You don't understand, he said quietly. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me, I demanded, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. Because right now, it looks like you've been lying to me for years. It looks like you're involved in something illegal, maybe even dangerous. So start talking. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated. Amanda, she was reckless. She got involved in things she shouldn't have. And when it all fell apart, I was dragged into the mess. I had no choice. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Dragged into what, Jack? Embezzlement? Fraud? Are you saying you're innocent in all this? Jack hesitated, his silence louder than any confession. I did what I had to do. To protect us. To protect you. I felt a surge of anger rise within me. Protect me? By forging my name on documents? By putting me at risk without my knowledge? Do you even hear yourself? Sarah, you have to believe me, Jack pleaded, reaching across the table. I never wanted this to happen. Amanda threatened to expose me if I didn't cooperate. She was the one who... disappeared? I interrupted, my voice sharp. Is that what you're going to say? That she vanished and left you holding the bag? Or is there more, Jack? Did you have something to do with her disappearance? Jack's face paled, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. He shook his head, but the denial felt hollow. I didn't hurt her, he said, his voice barely audible. She was unstable. She said she was going to run, and I helped her. I thought if I got her out of the country, she'd leave me alone. My blood ran cold. You helped her with what money, Jack? Our money? The money you've been hiding in these accounts? Jack didn't answer. The silence between us was deafening. I stood, my hands trembling but my resolve firm. I trusted you, I said, my voice breaking. I gave you everything, and you've been living a life I didn't even know existed. Sarah, please, Jack said, standing and reaching for me, but I stepped back. I'm done being in the dark, I said. I'm going to the authorities. If you won't come clean, they'll make sure you do. Jack's face twisted in desperation. You don't know what you're doing. If you go to them, they'll drag you into this too. I met his gaze, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Maybe. But I'd rather face the truth than live another day in your lies. With that, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding with fear and determination. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. Jack's secrets were no longer mine to keep. In the weeks that followed, my world turned upside down. The authorities confirmed what Paul had suspected. Jack had been involved in Amanda's fraud scheme for years, using my name and identity to open accounts I never knew existed. The man I thought I knew, the life I thought we shared, it had all been built on deception. Every anniversary dinner, every vacation, every quiet moment together, all of it shadowed by secrets I never suspected. Sometimes I wonder how I missed the signs. How could I have been so blind? But then I remember that trust isn't blindness. It's faith in someone you love. Jack didn't just betray our vows. He manipulated that trust, using my love as a shield for his crimes. The hardest part wasn't losing Jack. It was losing the version of him I thought I knew. The man I had built my life around, planned my future with, and given my heart to completely. But in that loss, I found something unexpected. Strength I didn't know I had. The courage to face the truth, no matter how painful. The resilience to start over, even when it felt impossible. If you're watching this and something in your relationship doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. It might be nothing, but it might be everything. You deserve the truth, no matter how difficult it might be to hear. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more real stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately, healing. Remember, even in our darkest moments, we're never truly alone. I'll see you in the next video.